Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Deal Breakdown. I'm Wesley, your buyer specialist.
And I'm Fong Tran, your seller specialist.
And together we are the Deal Breakdown. Welcome to episode 5. Today we are talking about transaction stories. Now, last week we talked about current events. Next week's going to be the free form for the podcast, but today is all about transaction stories. And I've got one for us to talk about, mostly on how not to be a buyer. And we're going to talk about, just some topics that come naturally off of this story.
I feel like you're always dealing with headache transactions.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the transactions yep, we put an offer in, our first offer got accepted, went through the inspection, got the 2 repairs, and appraisal looked good, and we closed 30 days later.
Yeah, story's
over. Be that story. The buyers were pleasant, and I sent them champagne and flowers.
Yeah, so let's hear about this crazy story you got for us.
I don't know if it's crazy, because I feel like we all deal with people like this. So basically, these buyers. So I started talking to the wife. That's how I got connected to them. I had some good conversations with the wife and was obviously made aware of a husband, and it's just the 2 of them making a move, and understood where they were living before, Multnomah Village. And so they were looking to hopefully purchase in Multnomah Village. I'm sure you know a lot about Multnomah Village.
Yeah, I mean, it's southwest Portland. Yep. Pretty desirable area. I'd say, it's close to Portland itself. You have Lakeo right there, Westland to the south, access to Washington County, Beaverton with all the food. Very, very, very desirable area.
Man knows is Portland. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you said there is it's very desirable. I think one of the top things that people bring up when they talk about Multnomah Village is the walkability. It has great walkability, restaurants, bars, little mom and pop shops in the main hub of the neighborhood. And it's also quick and easy to get to major highways and freeways. People talk about Multnomah Village all the time. I love that area. Wish I could afford it. Now, we checked out a home, and the first tour, so this was a first-time home buyer. So I had multiple conversations with the wife, broke down the deal, broke down how it all went when you purchase a home, what the steps were needed to take. She had already gotten a pre-approval, and obviously I was just trying to understand what they were looking for in a home and their timeline. We go to this first house, and I meet the husband, and it's like a classic tale of the bravado husband.
I run the ship,
but then when it's just the 2 of them in the car, we know who the real boss is, type of deal. Yeah. You all probably know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So just straight up and down, his ego's coming out. Again, first-time home buyer. I'm like, where is this coming from? I think just how this guy is. And at the end of the house tour, they were very interested in the home. They wanted to think about it and wait. And I said, okay, that's fine. Let's schedule some other homes to compare. This was where I wanted to meet them. So I don't know how you do it. I know you're working with buyers more. I would say that depending on the distance for me, because Multnomah Village is very close for me, I'm okay with scheduling a showing, especially if they're pre-approved. It's close by. We'll have a good rapport build with at least one of them. I'm okay to just have one home for a tour, especially because I'm going to talk about paperwork, right? This was after the NAR settlement, so it was an opportunity. You have to, by the way, to show a home. You have to get a buyer agent agreement signed before you show the home. And I thought this was a perfect opportunity to just go see one home. What are your thoughts on one home versus more homes? For that, initial.
I think for the initial, meeting them, absolutely. The 2 ones I had this past weekend, we only did 1 showing each, but I combined both the showing and the consultation. Fortunately, both homes were vacant, so I scheduled a longer than 30-minute session. Yep. And so that's how I was able to do it. It's just a lot more efficient, and it gets you a foot into the door because some people are more wary. It's like, hey, meet me at my office, or let's meet at Starbucks, which I know you do a lot often, which works. But I think having a showing at the same time is kind of skips that first step.
Yeah. You mentioned I am famous for meeting in a coffee shop, one, because I have caffeine tattooed on my left arm, so I'm an addict. But I'm going to go on a little tangent here. because we got 30 minutes to fill with this story. So let's go on a tangent. I really like the coffee shop. So just a little story. Right now, we had our old office. This is where Fong and I met. We had our old office in John's Landing. And that was, I thought, really good location-wise because it was so central. If you were looking at Multnomah Village, that's a stone's throw away. If you're in Pearl, easy. If you're just across the river in Southeast, you hop on that bridge, the Selwood Bridge, and you're there. It's really centrally located. Obviously, if you're like looking at Beaverton, you live in Hillsborough, or you're in Vancouver, I always go with the coffee shop. Neutral ground, that's what it's called. Neutral ground also allows me to, sales technique here, buy them a coffee. Seems small, but I'm always like, can I buy you a coffee? Sometimes I take it. If they go yes on that coffee, I feel like I got a 5 to 10% higher chance of signing these people. That's why I do the coffee shop. Also, you want to be in the neighborhood that they're looking at. Our new office is in West Lynn. That's not as centrally located, especially because like 50% of the time I'm in Vancouver. Hey, you want to drive 45 minutes to my office? But I agree with you. I did it yesterday. I saw one home. It was a buyer's consultation right after that at the home. So you do that as well, is what you're saying.
Yep, exactly.
So I'll get back to the story. We saw this first home. They were interested. They wanted to think about it. We had a buyer's consultation, and the guy just straight up goes, how's your commission paid? And I described the settlement, the NAR settlement, and how everything changed with commissions aren't listed on the MLS anymore. And now it's up to the buyer agreement that we signed together to establish my commission. Goal is to have the seller pay all, if not most, of my commission. However, whatever they don't pay, you are obligated to meet that difference.
Yeah. Have you had a situation where a seller just refused to flat out pay even like anything?
Yes.
Really?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like they're like, no,
0%
BAC.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
that's crazy.
That's a very specific, I've had it once. I've had it one time. I've had it on both sides, actually. So once each. So one time as a buyer, it was a higher price point. That was a $1.3 million house. And we were competing. And my buyer is like, I will pay your commission just to make sure that we get this house. They offered it. And I said, okay, I think that's going to get us over the hump. It absolutely did, especially that price point when you're thinking about, now everybody's doing math on what my commission is as buyer's agent. So yeah, I mean, it can really put your offer over if you have the upfront capital, which he was paying cash for this house, so he did. On the sell side, I've had it one time where they just refused, and I lost that listing. I now have learned to just take the listing with 0% BAC and just watch them just get offers with people wanting BAC. Buyer agent commission, by the way. Do you get that a lot as a listing agent?
So it's different now because MRE is its own listing contract that your boss created with his attorney. If you've ever looked at the actual RMLS, you can specifically only dictate what your seller commission is. You can't even mention anything about what the BAC would be. And so does this help me as a listing agent? Secures like, oh, they only see 2.5%, 3%. Absolutely. But you made a very good point. Like, if they don't want to offer any BC, just sign the listing.
So to talk about that, yes, Fong, I know this is crazy. I have actually read the listing contract that Maine Real Estate created now that I'm signing listings. Woohoo. We have 3 choices on ours, and I always guide them to pick the one that says, like, I'm open to negotiating. Why wouldn't you ever do that? Why would you set I'm open to negotiations? What if you get a really good offer that just has above what you agreed to before? Like, what are you going to dang it, we got to write an addendum to our listing contract now. It's ridiculous. Just let them negotiate up front.
Yeah, it's crazy. Y'all's contract is
It's intense.
It's pretty intense, and I got yelled at by my current PB because, not necessarily yelled at, but I was like, well, this is how I did it. And then I realized, okay, it's how I did it because the contract was written custom. But yeah, let's go back to this transaction story. He sounds like he had an ego.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. You could
He wanted
cut it with a
to,
butter knife.
yeah, he wanted to be like Mr. Trump and just like lay down the law. But in reality, it sounded like the wife was, she was the amicable one, professional one.
Yes. Yes.
She was the one easier to work with,
Absolutely.
which I would love to work with. But
Yes.
but yeah, tell me more about like what happened.
So at the end of the showing, he said, "Well, I just want to let you know we're not going to pay you a dime. So as long as you whatever you get from the seller is what you're getting paid." Well, that's my goal. But just the way he did it, I was being very nice on how he said it. But basically he said, "Screw you. We're not paying you shit, even though you're going to be working hours and hours and hours." Did you know the average for a closing on the buy side is 36 hours?
Yeah, then average on
And
a
then
listing side
is 18.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's why Mr. Glover himself is like become an agent, listing agent.
That's right. And so, yeah, let me do these hours for free. Definitely. When, I tell my wife, we're not making any money. I hope our dogs can survive without food. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're having to eat top ramen for the next month or two.
Yeah. So basically, we don't end up getting that house. We do put an offer on it. We don't end up getting that house. Again, he's dictating like what we're putting in the offer. I'm telling you my professional recommendation of that is a dead on arrival offer. If it's 525 and you're offering 450, I'm just telling you right now, it's not happening. Write it up. Yes, sir, you're my principal.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, those buyers these days, it's not like 2008, 2010. Like you can't offer DK below asking price and try to get a deal. Like, is it a buyer's market? Yeah, we're absolutely leaning towards that way, but numbers and statistic wise, we're still in a seller's market.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Another thing too is I told him I spoke with the listing agent. They spoke with the sellers, and I'm not going to waste my time writing a low offer like that. I'm going to say, hey, straight up, our offer's 450. Tell your seller. And then when they tell their seller, and their seller is like, absolutely not.
Yeah, go kick rocks.
What's the point? But we put the offer in. I'm not saying that's what we offered, but we put the offer in, dead on arrival. We waited a week. We put another offer in on that same house, a little bit higher. Didn't happen. So I'm telling them, you need to either increase your offer or you need to forget about this house. They wanted to forget about the house. So we moved along and we ended up getting under contract in the Kenton neighborhood, which is very different from the Multnomah Village neighborhood. If you know the Kenton neighborhood, you know about Paul Bunyan. If you don't, Google Paul Bunyan statue Portland, and you are now looking at the Kenton neighborhood. It's very small. It's near the Kenton Park there. It's known for the Paul Bunyan statue. It's got about 2 or 3 small, like 3 to 4 block streets with some restaurants and bars. It's this quaint, cute little neighborhood in between like the Northeast Portland, like Alberta Arts District and St. John's. So it's closer to St. John's. It's actually pretty close to the river. So we looked at a house up there, nice remodeled house. We got under contract. I got the inspector in there, and the just sheer arguing this man had with our inspector. I apologize. That's right. That's not it. He argued with me. I mixed up stories here. He argued with me about the inspector because he says, I have a friend that's an inspector. I scheduled the inspection for Thursday at 9. Didn't tell me, okay? Didn't ask me if I was free to go there and do it. Just scheduled it. This is my friend that's an inspector. People, don't hire your friend that's an inspector. Don't do it. But he did. And so now what's happening is it's the two of them versus me is really what it comes down to. And the expectations that the inspector, who's their friend, okay, first, inspector second, is like giving them like the idea of this house needs to be freaking perfect. Okay. And that inspector probably went back to that house 2 more times because we had to go back and forth with the seller. Hey, they want to drill holes in the ceiling to see if it's leaking. Now, what if they don't buy this house? They just have holes in their home? No, you have to have an agreement that you're destroying their home. They're changing your home.
Yeah. And another portion is within the inspection addendum. It's like anytime you manipulate a property, for example, like if you want to check if like a certain popcorn ceiling has asbestos and you have to cut in like a little 1 by 1 inch square, you have to repair it back. And that's on you as a buyer.
Correct. I'm getting to the climax here. I'm trying to set up just the sheer amount of difficulties I had with this guy.
I was going to say fuckery, but that works
Sure.
too.
these are just a couple of the times. There's a lot of different times where it was combative. Okay. We get to the end of our inspection period, which we've extended at this point. Now, in Oregon, you have a document called a repair addendum. And this is the point of this story. This is the learning moment for buyers. You have a repair addendum. In this repair addendum, okay, you can ask for the seller to repair things, and you set a date for them. To repair things. So at the end of an inspection period, buyers, you have this thing called a repair addendum, which is where you can write repairs that the seller will do. You write a date that they have it completed by, but that's where you establish things that you want repaired by the seller for you to end your inspection contingency period. Another thing you can do is ask for money back or a price reduction on the asking price. So when you ask for closing costs, okay, you say there's $10,000 of repairs. Instead of you taking the time to finish these repairs before close, which could take time, or if they don't have the money to do it, you could say, well, I'll take $10,000, presumably the cost of those repairs, in closing costs and prepaids. I know you know about that, Fong.
Yeah.
Sure you do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, it's the repair or the inspection contingency of any transaction is probably the biggest hurdle and headache, emotionally and physically, for not only you as an agent, but as the buyer, because it's up in the air if you're still going to be in contract or not.
100%. I mean, it's the three hurdles that we talk about. The upfront hurdle of agreeing on a price and terms up front to get your offer accepted. The inspection period, which includes what we just talked about, agreement of what they're going to do, give money back or repair. And then the third is the appraisal. You clear those hurdles, usually you're pretty good. Okay, so we went the money route, okay, in lieu of repairs. So let's say it was $10,000. Not saying that's the number, but let's say it was $10,000. I have a call, and it has gotten to the point on this, by the way, this transaction, where everything is in email, okay? So I call him. I say, hey, I do not recommend going with the money because he was under the impression, ego man, that money could be used for repairs, that they would get $10,000 in cash to pay for the repairs. That is not how that works, okay? So I said, don't do that. In an email I sent, I recommend that we do not go with the money back. Instead, we could do a price reduction, which will save money in the down payment for you to do this, or we ask for these repairs, maybe do a holdback, an escrow holdback, right? Or we can have escrow pay out the money to these contractors at closing, okay? I said this in an email. If you do this, you are not getting that money. I'm covering my ass.
Yeah, really, I mean, really, whenever a seller gives concessions or credits to the buyer, it's not free money. It's less money to the closing table. It helps. Essentially, you don't have to bring in closing costs, whether it's, home insurance, taxes, paid in arrears,
origination fee of the loan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not just.
Well, you could also buy your rate down.
Exactly.
Basically, that money is used to pay for, like you said, the things at closing table, or maybe help on your monthly payment. You're not getting $10,000. You're not getting $10,000. So, this email has been sent. It's not how this works. I said, you need to talk to your lender, who is also their friend, okay? On top of the inspector, I said, please talk to him, because this is not how this works. You can talk to him to see how this money can be applied. This was a different email, so multiple emails. And he's been including me in all these email change. He's like, no, I want this money. And I go, okay, hey, seller, how about this money? They agreed to it. And I said, okay, once we sign this, it will end the inspection period. Yet again, this is not how it works. Yes, cool. About 2 days after, I remember I was walking into my local game store and he called me. I was with our friend Danny, you know him too, and he started yelling at me. What the fuck? Like, this money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I told you that is not how this works. He's like, we're thinking about backing out. And I go, you're going to lose your earnest money. And he goes, why would we lose our earnest money? We are out of all of our contingencies. We're supposed to close in a couple days. So back and forth. He called his lender and he said, we figured it out. Basically, this guy, no matter what I was saying, he couldn't hear it. He couldn't process what I was saying, even in writing and over the phone. Okay. We ended up closing the house. They ended up being happy. They're like, thank you so much, like type of deal. The moral of the story is fucking listen to us.
I think a big learning point, as I know this is not a real estate agent podcast, is record keeping and communication via email, because it's you protected your ass in case of, like, you never told me that it wasn't going to be free 10K in cash. And so you're like, well, on this date, during this time, we had a communication and you said, yes, I understand. And so I think that you have to give yourself props for that, because I lack that, because I'm a guy that if I need to talk to you about something, I'm usually first on the phone.
Appreciate you saying that. The only reason I do that is because I've been screwed over before, that I know I need to cover my ass, CYA. I've told a mutual friend of ours, Brian, to do the same thing on a transaction he did, because I'm like, they're going to come back to you. I have told agents, listing agents, hey, I need, like, can we switch to only communicating over email? I've done that before. So the moral of the story here for sure with this transaction is please listen to the advice of your real estate agent. I understand that sometimes it feels like we're just there to make a quick buck. We just wrote paperwork. The inspector, the lender, the title company, they might seem more important, but the reason we're there is to guide you to make sound decisions. I'm not trying to get sued after the fact, but also check your ego, okay? Especially if you're a first-time home buyer, check your ego at the door. I got it a lot from powerlifting and jiu-jitsu, just getting choked out, right? It's okay to not be an expert in everything. Everybody has their thing. He has a job. She had a job. The wife, I have a job. I'm not going to go in and tell you how to do your job. Don't come in and tell me how to do my job.
Yeah, that's why when it comes to a real estate transaction, you have a team, you have a lender, you have yourself, you have a coordinator, you have assistants. We can't be the jack of all trades. That's why we have people we rely on. And so check your ego at the door.
So that's the transaction story for today, for this week. Again, I think it's just about humility. It's okay to ask questions, and it's also okay for your realtor not to know everything, because there's things that I haven't dealt with, that Fong even hasn't dealt with, but the sign of a good real estate agent is that they're going to find you the question, or find you the answer to the question, and guide you in the right way. That's all we're saying. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it wasn't just a complaining session to y'all. But this is Wesley, your buyer specialist, signing off for the day.
And this is Fong, your seller specialist, signing off as well.
Take care, guys. See you next week.